Automobilista 2, we haven't heard from you in a while. How are you doing? Oh yeah? Give me a moment. Find out right here, right now. Greetings Rommies and welcome to Rom, the channel sharing the joy of sim racing, and to a regular news roundup, our weekly sim racing news. Welcome to the channel if you're new here, and thanks to all those who come here often, especially those who subscribe. My name is Seca and I will be your host for this video. Ho hum. We thought this would be a calm week for sim racing, not really much going on. Then again, Friday came and with it, news. Anyway, we got a WRC update, a Rennsport update, and most importantly, a big Automobilista 2 update incoming amongst many other news this week. And big news for us. On our next podcast, the December one, we'll be honored to have Maurice Hebeka as guest. Maurice is the CEO of the company developing Rennsport, and we'll spend some time asking him questions, which could be your questions. Check the QR code or use the link in the description of the video to get to our Discord, where we've set up a channel for all your questions. We can't promise we'll ask them all, but we can promise we'll read them all and see to it we get as many of those asked as possible. Especially as we got advanced information about what's expected to be in the Rennsport update planned for next Friday, 24th. Not as Rom exclusively, but anyone who's been following Rennsport. More about the update in this video. Oh, and we all can be in Kansas soon if we want, and we don't even need red shoes, as SCS have revealed their next DLC for American Truck Simulator, Kansas, to be released on November 30th. No rainbows or tornadoes promised though. Another week, another patch for a software that was clearly released unfinished and too soon. Numbered 1.3.0, this is the second patch of EA Sports WRC in so many weeks. Ike cannot finish one test run without them dropping the next patch, it seems. Again, they've done corrections on the graphics to reduce stutter everywhere. I don't know, I think if they turn off that stupid de novo digital restriction management, aka piracy protection, which normally gets cracked in about a week anyway, but I digress, they would win more FPS than with any code cleanup ever. But what do I know? Now your code driver will deliver the notes sooner when using the earlier and normal settings, which was a point many made. Good of EA to, for once, listen to their customers. They've also fixed many instances where the sim would crash, and also a lot of brightness issues in the inside of cars. And if you had problems using Fanatic peripherals with WRC, they have fixed a ton and a half of those. While they were at it, they also fixed an issue where the frame rate was contingent on how many devices you had on the computer's USB. Man, WRC would not have run on my system at all with that issue. Don't ask. Once again, they've worked on the graphics of many rally locations and done another good cleanup of code and issues that for sure their QA had already put on their table. And once again I ask myself why they released a badly done software that needs so many patches on start. In any case, the next patch is already in the making and will be dropping mid-December. We already were asking ourselves in our news last week, see the link up there, how long Penske, owners of the Indycar brand, would wait until making a decision about the Indycar license after Motorsport Games announced yet another delay, this time rather indefinite, of the Indycar 24 sim. Turns out, not very long, as Penske has rescinded the contract with MSG, thus leaving the company with only one of their licenses, the one for the WEC, after selling the NASCAR license to iRacing to survive, and the BTCC rescinding their contract in a similar way than IndyCar. While Motorsport Games made noises about letting their lawyers check out the issue, we're quite sure it will all amount to nothing. even providing they could afford going to court over it. It's a good question how long after the release of LMU, MSG will still be able to survive. Personally, I don't expect LMU to sell in the numbers needed to continue as costly an operation as MSG seems to be. Remember, they are burning through $1.1 million per month. An R Factor 2 surely does not make that amount of money. Also, it's questionable if anybody is going to sell them a license anymore, most especially an exclusive license after the enormous loss of reputation the company incurred starting with NASCAR 21. I'd say motorsport games are done and dusted, but I've been wrong in the past. Once every century or so it seems, we get signs of life coming from Raceroom. The KW studio crew has been busy updating the tire model. Seems that during the development of the Porsche pack, they recognized what many had been saying. Their tire model has been lacking. Once they recognized that, they went down the rabbit hole of everything having to do with tire physics and tire models and whatnot. And believe me, it's a deep rabbit hole. One that sucked them in for months, they say, while they collected information that they have been pouring into the physics of the tires and their behavior within the sim. Unluckily, their posting is quite thin on the technical details, contrary to, for example, Reiza, that tries to convince us how great the tires are now without giving any information, so we'll have to take the word for it until they release the update and we can test drive the new tire physics. On the other hand, the force feedback update they did a long time ago really did improve the driving feeling within the sim exponentially, so we'll give them the benefit of the doubt despite the marketing bullshit based on past performance. They also warned that braking behavior of the cars has become more realistic now because of the better tire physics, so you may have to relearn braking within Raceroom, especially how to modulate your braking behavior. Expect this update, which they have dubbed V5, to come in December to some select cars. No date on when it will be deployed on all cars yet. As the conversations they started during their implementation of this V5 resulted in new contacts, for example with Falcon tires, they say to expect a V6 to come out at some point in 2024, which will take tire temperatures into consideration, the consequences of tire wear on the mechanical grip, and maybe some more. Because of issues in the backend of Raceroom, which seem to have absorbed whatever development time the tire updates left over, any updates of content that were planned for this year have been moved to 2024. Keeping in mind parts of the backend are still from 2013, the year Raceroom saw the light of day for the first time. An update was overdue, and that's what they're going to do over. Work on the backend also means the ranked multiplayer continues on hold until all work is done there. Until then, they will try to organize the ranked multiplayer through Discord. We're not sure this is the best of ideas, but we'll wait and see. And while the backend is being worked upon, the front end, more specifically the main menu and the content selection, will be refurbished and the content selection made more informative and easier to use. Well, Sims will spend part of December testing Raceroom. Why not? The Sim's always fun anyway.
Rennsport have mostly been quiet since their last update in our news, which we totally respect. But they're returning with a positive splash this week. Rennsport have announced that on Friday the 24th of November, they'll release version 1.6 of their closed beta. When it releases, we'll be getting 2 new cars being labelled as redacted, although they dropped hints in their town hall last week that these would be TCR cars, as well as Road Atlanta and the Daytona Road Course. Building towards a pretty decent IMSA calendar there, Rennsport. On top of that, 2 big publicity moves announced are that the Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland is taking place in Rennsport, and they will be releasing 15,000 beta keys with this version of Rennsport, as we mentioned last week. Now, we're assuming that the official Carrera Cup Deutschland that builds towards the Porsche Junior Shootout is still taking place in real cars, and this Carrera Cup is some other project to perhaps find a new real racer from their investment in the sim, but that's an assumption. Back to the unreleased sim. There are three main updates in this 1.6 patch the developers were focusing on. One is a discrepancy between the ISI engine, where the real-world numbers they were feeding into the physics calculations weren't being replicated correctly in-game. These have since been adapted and modified, like all games using the ISI engine need to do, so that the cars behave more realistically when on the edge now. Not a final refinement, but progress. Two, shockingly, is tyre behaviour, which was spawning complaints in the Rennsport Discord, ranging from they're retaining heat too long to they feel spongy and floaty. Rennsport say these have been improved, the floating should be reduced or gone, and well, let's see about the heat retention. 3, and lastly, and this is something that we found in our testing too, the force feedback was lacking detail, and made it difficult to understand where the car was and how much space you had left in your traction circle. Christoph, the dev handling the report for this edition of Under the Hood, says this should be massively improved in the new version, and the force feedback will be more communicative about where the car is in the corner. Like Ace Attorney, we're compelled to call out Hearsay until November 24th, as these are all just words and the proof of the pudding will, unironically, be in the eating. New features being added to the sim, not a placeholder storefront to my mind. The make or break of Rennsport includes new statistics from your race sessions, new leaderboards, and rolling starts becoming an option. So, those of you without clutches, rejoice. You'll no longer be at a disadvantage. A great patch for Rennsport then, after some drama in the past few weeks. As you've heard on our podcast, we're all fascinated by this in development sim, and hope beyond hopes that they're able to make good on their promises to the community in the end. And remember that, as Serta said in the intro, we'll have CEO Morris Hebecker in our podcast in December. Any questions you may have for us to ask him, drop them in the very special channel of our Discord, see the QR code, or check the description of the video for a direct link.
Next Level Racing have a brand new cockpit to show and tell. The GTRACER, sorry for yelling, but it's all in caps, is a €430 USD tubular frame rig with frame and seat adjustability. It also includes what I could only describe as a GT Omega quality gamer seat rigidly fixed to the frame. On the surface, a pretty sorted kit until you look a little closer. The provided pictures show the seat fitted in a way that provides no support to the back section, or more precisely, where the majority of the force is going to come from when you hit the brakes. There's other design ideas that we can see as not working, like the non-adjustable pedal mount, the inability to largely change the distance the wheel is mounted individually to the pedals, about 150mm at a surface guess. Frame is positioned to get right in the way of drivers with big feet, and the flimsy connection between the wheel and the pedal assembly and the seat assembly could cause flexing under heavy forces. Add this to the list of not worth this much, but if you can get a deal on it with intent to modify pile. And if you do, look to reinforce the floor connection with a more solid feel between the two halves and do something with that pedal plate. The tinkerer in me really wants to get a hold of this to see if the pedal plate can be removed and attached to the column as an inverted mount, as that would solve a lot of both the ergonomic issues we see with this rig and possibly increase the compatibility with more upmarket sets of pedals. The GTRACER supports up to 13 Nm, but this is, as usual, pushing the limits of flex that you'd want in a rig, and it comes with attachments for a shifter, with that much tinkering needed to get it working as it should. And at that price, we can't recommend this rig at all. Digital Bros, owners of Kunos, makers of Assetto Corsa Competizione, and Assetto Corsa 2, are reducing their team by 30%, similar to what Motorsport Games already did. Does that mean Assetto Corsa 2 and Kunos are in similar hot water as Le Mans Ultimate, Studio 397 and R Factor 2 are, not to speak of the now defunct IndyCar 2024? Not according to Marco Mazzarutto, founder and boss of Kunos. The colleagues from DrivingItalia.net asked him point blank what this meant for Kunos, and he stated it made no difference to Kunos and Assetto Corsa 2, which is surely a relief to many of you Romies. His statement, translated by us from the original Italian you can find at DrivingItalia.net, see the link in our description, is as follows. Kunos Simulazioni is not involved in these plans and remains committed with its entire staff on the development of new content for Assetto Corsa Competizione and the new and long-awaited Assetto Corsa title coming in 2024. There you have it. While Assetto Corsa 2 has been moved to the summer, it seems it's more to make some space for the development of the Nordschleife for Competizione than any other issues. Hopefully it stays that way. With slightly less drama than Las Vegas F1 at night, the Evolution Racing Academy took Laguna Seca on and went with it. It already started badly for some, as there was a pileup on the Andretti corner which destroyed many dreams, and of course the corkscrew had more than enough drivers lose control of their car. And while Schutte ran away with his first position, keeping it until the end, up and down the grid there were battles happening, so many it was sometimes difficult to decide where to put the camera. One example were Horman and Fredriksson, who fought until the checkered flag for second position, or the many battles Kolb endured. Laguna Seca showed how vibrant these races are, with Spezza, in theory a driver from the lower-ranked Pro-Am tier, making 4th in the overall ranking of the race and 1st in the Pro-Am tier. There were so many shenanigans though, the stewards are still sorting out penalties and the standings have not yet been officially confirmed. For once, there won't be an Evolution Racing Academy race tonight, the series taking 1 week off until next Sunday. Moving on from the ERA races, the Automobilista 2 Community Cup will race this Wednesday wonderful C1 cars on Long Beach. If the Indycar races are anything to go by, the races will be interesting and maybe races of attrition. Those C1 beasts are prone to throttle oversteer even on 3rd gear, and the track limits of turn 1 are the stuff of nightmares. Been there, done that, got the penalty. Here we go again. After pushing the update from end of September to end of October and then ignoring that self-set date because Reiza run on their own clocks or something, now in the middle of November we get one of those monster development updates Reiza has gotten us accustomed to. While they still don't give us a release date for their eagerly awaited update, which may very well include Le Mans, that doesn't bother us at all. They won't release the update on the announced day anyway. Get something to drink, some popcorn and relax. This is as always going to be a long one. Here we go. As they say, this has been a time of polishing what they have. We all know and we have reported that not everything has been gold. But after their massive 1.5.0.5 update, which changed the physics deeply, the developers have taken a step back and have started applying those big changes all over the content of the sim, which, as you can witness with every race of the Automobilista 2 Community Cup, is a lot of content. All of you who love to hotlap and compare times with the world out there will be happy to know the time trial leaderboards are going to come back, with all times wiped out because of the extensive physics overhaul. There goes my world record in some obscure combo I don't even remember anymore that made me very proud of myself. Content! Nothing earth-shattering, but what would Automobilista 2 be without historic versions? Barcelona 1991 and the short national layout will be finished and active with the new version, as will Interlagos 1991 and 1993, two dates where Senna won there. Senna being the Brazilian driver and Reiza being a Brazilian company, this is hardly a coincidence. Montreal in its 1991 version, closes the list. Fitting the 1991 tracks, Reiza will bring open wheelers from the 1990s, which will have the active suspension some series had. Added to the active suspension, they will also bring traction control, launch control and ABS. Active suspension, in case you don't know, is exactly as it sounds. On-the-fly changes to the suspension to fit the characteristics of the track and car behavior made by a computer inside of the car, making it easier to drive. It also allowed the drivers to change the suspension to fit whichever part of the track they were to what they needed at that moment. Needless to say, it got banned from Formula 1 quite fast, but it was part of the cars for 2 seasons. The cars will make their debut in the 1.5.3 under the moniker Formula High-Tech Gen 1, and along the officially licensed McLaren MP4 7A, you will be able to drive 4 other non-specific models which we're sure will be quite but not completely similar to existing cars of that time. And if there's a Formula High-Tech Gen 1, it's a safe bet to expect a Formula High-Tech Gen 2, right? You're not wrong, and together with the, again, officially licensed McLaren MP4 8, further 3 generic models will see the light of day. Away from content, another important update has to do with the external sound, which, according to Reiza, is now at last at the level of quality they want. Now to the physics. The big change between 1.50 and 1.505 was the correction of a bug in the calculations of the tire carcass, spring and damper. Following these, there was yet another big round of corrections to the tire treads and their physics towards 1.5.3. Aerodynamics also got yet another pass, especially rear wing efficiency, as did brakes and their thermodynamics, because Reiza would not be Reiza if they would not geek out over physics, and some of us with them. The wet weather physics also saw a lot of work done, trying to squeeze the Madness engine for all it has to offer, which, as we all know, is a lot. Reiza devs worked on the relationship between tires and wet surfaces, and not only wet intermediate tires, but all kinds of tires. After all, depending on the level of dampness or wetness of a track, slicks may be better. The effect of rubber surfaces being more slippery on the wet than on dry track has been perfected, and the amount of water on the track is now made much more dependent to the track characteristics like slope and drains, which means you will have to watch out for puddles, as some of them will result in aquaplaning. Wet racing, as no other sim until now had, is what Reiza promise, and they normally make good on their promises. Well, other than when they promise a release date. All those physics updates mean a lot to us sim racers, offering us an experience much closer to reality than in versions before, but the AI needs to be worked upon to be able to drive on those new physics, so that's where some of the development time went also. Now, all of these new code doing ever more calculations could bring the sim to a halt, or force you to use one of those supercomputers science uses to find out how much we're screwing up the climate. But another thing developers have been working on is making the code ever more performant, even with development like streamlining the code for the AI raceline. The multiplayer code, though, is still not in the place where Reiza want it to be, and they promise they'll keep working on it in the future. In multiplayer and single player alike, they developed and brought up dedicated safety car models, which depend on the class you are driving, and you can schedule a full course yellow to bring the whole roster together, much like stadium super trucks do, which are still nowhere to be seen. This is what we can expect in this update numbered 1.5.3, and for now still expected for sometime in December, whatever that's worth in the land of Reiza. For the future, Reiza want to change the graphic user interface of the sim, which still looks a lot like a reskinned Project Cars 2, getting the rendering engine to an even better standard, some content management system expected to include mods. Now look at that. They want to work on their server management tool to make it easier to organize and run multiplayer races, add more tracks and cars, and ultimately also publish the career mode we all thought they had forgotten already. And it also seems they are working on making endurance races possible, but we may be hearing what we wish to be true. On the other hand, adding Le Mans almost forces you to think about endurance. Right? We wish they'd put some time and energy into the broadcast mode for us to be able to show you even more of the incredible Automobilista 2 Community Cup races, but that's just us.